Hey guys, today we're going to be making papas bravas, which is Spanish tapas. Generally it's fried potatoes with tomato sauce and aioli. I will also be showing you how to make a chimichurri, just a little touch that I like to add onto the potatoes. So starting with our potatoes, I'm using about 2-inch by 2-inch size potatoes, cutting them in half. If they're smaller than that, you can boil them whole. If you cut them, cover them in cold water and let them sit aside before you're ready to use them so they do not oxidize. We're going to be using fennel for 2 parts of this dish. We'll be cooking the bulb into a tomato sauce, and for the fennel fronds, pick them clean, and we're going to be adding them into our chimichurri. So for the chimichurri, it's basically it's close to a pesto, but with vinegar and parsley. So you rough chop your parsley tops, 1 whole bunch. Rough chop all of your fennel fronds from your fennel. Combine them into a bowl together. We're going to smack 2 cloves of garlic, peel them, rough chop them, and add them to our herb bowl. Next, I'm going to add 2 small red onions. So just cut the top and bottom off, peel the outer layer off the onions, and I basically just quarter these. You only need them to be small enough to be able to go into a food processor. We're going to throw this together very quickly and easily. Not much chopping required. So add your onions to the same bowl. Then we're going to basically dump everything into a food processor. We're going to pulse it up and add vinegar, oil, and salt, and that's basically what chimichurri is. So I'm using red wine vinegar. Add about a half a cup of red wine vinegar, and then it'll help get the herbs and onions moving in the food processor. Pulse it a few times. The more you pulse it, the more agitated it'll get. It'll basically draw the big chunks of herbs down towards the bottom, and it'll become a chopped up paste much quicker when you pulse. So I had some nice olive oil in my refrigerator, so it was solid when it was cold, but use about a half a cup to a cup of nice olive oil. Add that into your herbs, and then a solid pinch of salt. Once you pulse this all together, you can check the seasoning. If you want to add a little bit more salt or vinegar or olive oil, it's really up to your preference, but basically you just want it thin enough that you can spoon it over something. And once this is done, it'll keep in the refrigerator for at least a week, maybe 2, but it's great on anything, on meats, roasted vegetables, eggs in the morning. So it's really handy condiment to have around, and it tastes great on these potatoes. So once your chimichurri is ready, just set it to the side. You don't want to put it in the refrigerator or it'll solidify a little bit too much for what we're doing today. Next, we're going to start with our tomato sauce. So we'll be using the bulb with the fennel. So take the core out of the center and then rough chop it. Then we're going to be cutting some scallions, some leeks. Add them into the bowl. Another couple of red onions, sliced in half, peeled, and rough chopped. You just want everything to be small enough that you can cook it in a pot and stir it together, but it doesn't have to be very fine cut or anything. We'll use a couple more garlic cloves. I used 3. Peel them and just very rough chop them. Doesn't have to be very finely minced or anything. Then into a hot pot, put a little bit of oil, probably about a tablespoon, and dump in the fennel, leeks, onions, and let that sweat for a few minutes. In the meantime, we'll be preparing our tomatoes. Some of these bigger slicers I like to quarter and then kind of just cut off the hard top part. So just rough chop everything. As you can see, the fennel and onion have become a little bit translucent. We're going to go ahead and dump in our tomatoes. I probably have about 2 pounds of tomatoes in here. While that's cooking down, we're going to boil our potatoes. bring 2 quarts of water, of heavily salted water, to a boil. Dump your potatoes in. We can continue to cook down our tomatoes while the potatoes are cooking. As you can see, it's all starting to break down. The liquids are coming out of the tomatoes, cooking down nicely. While the potatoes are cooking and the tomatoes are simmering, we will make our aioli from scratch. So this is a foolproof way to make aioli. 1 whole egg, 1 clove of garlic. You'll want to pulse that in the food processor first for about 20 seconds. The next step is important. It will be any kind of mustard. I'm using whole grain Grey Poupon mustard. The acid in the mustard will help emulsify the egg yolk, and it'll guarantee you have a proper mayonnaise every time. The next step is to add a tablespoon of lemon juice. This will also help your egg yolks accept all of this oil that you'll be adding. And then 1 cup of neutral flavored oil. I just have canola oil. Slowly drizzle it into the food processor while it's running. And you'll hear it thicken as your oil gets added. Once that's all in, add a pinch of salt. Give it a few more pulses. And we'll set it to the side. Eventually, we're going to be adding some of our tomato sauce into the aioli and making a tomato aioli. So we'll have the chimichurri, the tomato aioli, and some tomato, just plain tomato sauce, and these will all top our boiled and fried potatoes. So my tomato mixture has cooked for about 15 minutes. I'm going to dump it in a blender and just let it sit. I checked my potatoes and they are fork tender. At this point, I'm going to scoop it out with a spider into a strainer basket. And I'm going to run some cold water over just to kind of take the heat off, but you don't need to necessarily fully chill them. And I'm going to let them drip dry in the sink for a little while longer. My tomato sauce has cooled slightly. A trick to blending hot sauces is to take the top off and just put a towel over the top. It'll let some more hot air escape. But just go slow, like start on a very slow speed and then gradually increase to a higher speed, otherwise you might end up with tomato sauce exploding all over. Then we'll take our tomato sauce that's been blended and set it in a bowl. Rinse out your blender, and then we can make our tomato aioli right away. So take that garlic aioli that you just made, put about half of it in the blender. The other half you can save and use it on sandwiches or potato salad or anything else you might want to make. Sprinkle in about 2 teaspoons of smoked Spanish paprika and about a quarter, let's say about a half a cup of your tomato sauce. And we'll blend together the aioli and the tomato sauce with the paprika, and that'll become our Spanish tomato aioli. Once your tomato aioli is all blended together, pour it in a bowl and put it in the refrigerator until the rest of our dish is ready to roll. Now that my potatoes have dried, I'm going to get a good amount of oil in a pan that's pretty hot and place them cut side down. And the key here is to use more oil than you would normally use. The potatoes tend to kind of soak it up, but once it'll also help them crisp up a lot better and not stick. So just set them cut side down, let them sear for about 5 minutes before you even touch them. And as you can see, they're nice and golden and crispy on the edges. So they'll be nice and soft and pillowy on the inside and crunchy on the outside. And when they're done to your likeness, we can just put them in a bowl and we'll top our potatoes and complete the dish. Give a good sprinkle of salt also. So we have our potatoes. First, sprinkle on some just tomato sauce. Next, the roasted tomato garlic aioli. Then we'll have our nice parsley and fennel frond chimichurri. Drizzle that all over. And I happen to have some nice microgreens. I'm just going to put some of those on top to really complete the dish, give it a little texture and some freshness. And that's it. That is Papa's Bravas. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy.